Claudia, show me the pictures for your colour.
Okay. There's just one.
Good.
Actually.
One's good.
But it's basically this.
Yes,
so
good.
I still want my roots to be
Yes,
the
dark.
same.
Yes.
And I think around the face at the front, I want it to be lighter. So I want that blonde.
Yes.
And then towards the bottom, just gradually going
A little
into
softer.
blonde.
Beautiful.
I don't mind it being even a shade lighter than this, but actually this is pretty ideal. And then I have one of me for like comparison.
Yes,
which I
good.
think is a bit darker.
Yeah, I think it's just
like
the lighting, isn't it, on that one? Your
That's
one.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I mean, you can see them on the screen, guys. Here's something to think about. You know, think about the image. Photographs are different in different lights, in different circumstances, and it's really, really important to bear in mind that this image that we see here now is professional, and the other one's Claudia in her bedroom or wherever. So, you know, you've got to just weigh up the differences and point out that, you know, actually there's probably not a huge amount of difference between the two, actually, if we look at them side by side in comparison, just the lighting. But really lovely, you know, image that Claudia has shown us here. There's one big thing to point out, and this is why it's really important to consolidate the cut and the colour consultation simultaneously well. And the big thing that I'm going to point out is Claudia's asked for long soft bangs, but is now showing me a colour where there is a continuous ribbon of light going from the root area at the top all the way through to the ends. When we cut the bangs in, that continuous line of colour will be interrupted and therefore not quite look exactly like the picture. Now, if Claudia is okay with that, and we'll ask her in a minute, if Claudia is okay with that, then that's fine. But if Claudia's not aware and we just go in willy-nilly and Claudia's like, oh, wasn't expecting that, then there can be a certain level of disappointment with the result. So that's a really, really important thing to bear in mind. Claudia is now scrolling to find more hair pictures, but no, it's okay. Do you see what I mean? And great, Claudia just showed us one picture. Now you guys will know out there that quite often you get shown half a dozen hair pictures. They're all slightly different and they're all very difficult to bring together in one hit. But here's the reality of that, guys, is that that's okay. Claudia is not a hairdresser and it's our responsibility to point these things out. That's why we do these consultations. It's really, really important. But we do need to be very, very mindful of the obvious. I think that's some of the things that are overlooked enormously in our particular industry, is that the obvious is not always obvious. And we should be more fastidious about getting the right image, the right look for our client, because they're not going to break it down like that. And if we break it down for them, they'll thank us for it later. You know, so Claudia is now like showing me a different picture.
Found them.
So we'll put that up on the screen now, okay, and you guys can see that that continuous line is not as bold up towards the root area. It's more diffused into the bangs at the front, and therefore that is then continuing down into the length. Now, the colour, the tonality of the original picture is still perfectly okay. We can still aim for that tonality because it's slightly different on this image. It's slightly warmer, it's not quite as blonde. And actually this is uncoloured hair. Sacre bleu, like literally amazing, okay, uncoloured hair, everybody's dream, yeah. But we do need to be like mindful of the fact that, you know, in the first image, it was perfectly achievable to get the level of lightness. But if we put those type of fringes in, we do need to be mindful that Claudia's hair is not going to look exactly like that very first colour image. Now, she showed us one that is completely doable. And that is where the compromise needs to come in. We need to kind of sit down and think about what is achievable in this particular situation. What can we do to modify and create something that we can both do and be satisfied with? Claudia's kindly done it for me. But in reality, and she wasn't prompted to do that, by the way, that's just Claudia's superb thinking on her for proactive. You know, but the reality of this situation is that, you know, if we didn't have Claudia and we had a client that was just sitting there saying, what do we do? Well, the truth of the matter is we'd have to find an image that Claudia has found that had that grown out long bangs effect and lightness in the front simultaneously. So the big difference between the two images in a nutshell is that that bead of light on that very first one that followed the edge of the hair that frames the face will be softer and more diffused, like the picture she just showed us. There's a lot of hair here, and when we're dealing with a lot of hair, what we've got to be mindful of is the technique needs to be big and bold and robust, because if we do something that's light and airy fairy and not very, very bold and strong, it gets lost within the hair. Now Claudia's kindly given us an image that actually really works on her hair. She's shown us an ombre style of technique with a little bit of face framing around the front. So that's great, because that's really something that we can kind of go for, aim at and create on Claudia's hair. If she'd have showed us a very delicate piecey balayage, it probably wouldn't have worked because it would have got lost in this hair. As I mentioned in consultation, when you make a ponytail out of Claudia's hair, it's about 2 inches in diameter. So there is an enormous quantity of hair here. And that's fine, you know, we've got to just work with that as we create the technique. So if there's a lot of hair, think bigger, bolder, stronger techniques. And if there's finer hair, you can do finer, softer techniques and they will still show up in the hair. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to do some foils around the front hairline, create almost a money piece. But then what we're going to make sure we do with this front hairline is that we colour the hair in between, because if we just did a money piece on this density of hair, it would be totally lost. So we're going to tip the ends out as well. And then we're going to, obviously, you'll have seen we trim this down into a long grown out fringe shape. We will have a lot more colour density akin to the image that we'd have seen from the consultation. So guys, pre-section, as always, mega simple. When we do a balayage, what we want to do is ascertain exactly where Claudia is going to wear her parting. Now this parting is the one she came in with. So we can say to Claudia, is this where you wear your hair?
Yes. Let me check. That is where my it does its own thing.
It does its own thing, and that's fine. You know, if it does its own thing, that's cool. It looks pretty set there. I mean, I've seen Claudia before today, and I've seen her parting in that position before. So I would say it's pretty common that it's there. So we'll just tidy up that parting a little bit. Now, Claudia's hair before pop your head, and we're going to work very much with the natural parting. So I'm going to use the back end of my tint brush, because remember guys, these sections do not need to be ultra precise. We want them to be in the right spot, but they don't need to be the most precise sections you ever took in all of your life. Now that leaves us with quite a large section of hair in the back. So we can see now we've got a nice clear visual of the section running down through the head shape there. Okay, so it's something just to bear in mind that, you know, although I said we didn't want perfectly clean sections, we do want to be able to see where we're going with these sections. And then what we're going to do is simply split the hair straight down the center back and pop a clip into this left side and a clip into the right side. Take a diagonal backward section. That's going to create a 45-degree angle just like that. Now remember, the hair density is very thick, but because we're in the nape area, obviously there is the finer natural hairs around the hairline. That is something to bear in mind. So it's not going to make this section quite as dense as other sections as we work through. So I've taken a section that is probably 3 inches from the hairline behind the ear and 2 inches up from the bottom hairline, but it's not really thick enough. So just before you kind of get into your section, make sure you've got enough hair that's going to feel like a similar density to the other sections on the head. So that feels much more like it. That is much more like what we want to have for a section in terms of depth and quantity of hair. Okay, so it's going to be nice and simple. We're going to over direct our sections, and we're going to do a really nice, easy hand blending technique, because we're going to create a balayage ombre type of effect. The reason we're not going for like a pure ombre is because of the density of Claudia's hair. We want some highs and lows in it. And so what we're going to do as we work through these sections, we're going to take some up higher than others and some down a bit lower. And that's going to break up the density visually of Claudia's hair. So remember, we're going to over direct the hair now. So the hair is coming out from the head horizontally, but it's also coming out the head on a diagonal plane. We're going to pick up some of our lightener and we're going to start applying to the ends. Now we are going to fully saturate the ends, and if you saw the pictures that Claudia showed us, all of the ends are lightened. So we can go full saturation and really work through the product. And for anybody that has seen some of my lockdown videos, I'm back to using the serial killer gloves that we had in one of the episodes, in fact a lot of the episodes, but I've actually really grown to like them. Not because they look like serial killer gloves, actually I just really like the fact that I can just use the same pair of gloves over and over again, and I don't have the waste of you know, changing gloves, replacing gloves all of the time. So yeah, feeling these. I'm trying to come up with a way of making them better, but actually for like blending and stuff like that, they work really, really well. So you can get these from Marigold. These are literally marigolds. But I'm really, really into them. I've really grown to like them. I started using them totally by accident. I don't know if you remember, we gave all our gloves to a hospice in lockdown. So we didn't have any nitrate neoprene gloves, and we didn't order any because we didn't want them to not get to the NHS if they needed them. I mean, penicillin was discovered by accident, wasn't it? So, you know. Okay, so for these messy techniques, always have a towel on hand to wipe your hands with and keep everything clean and tidy. So I do like getting messy. I know lots of stylists don't like getting messy and they find these techniques very, very difficult to get on board with. So we saturated our section about 50% of the way on this particular section, and then we can just simply hold the foil horizontally and roll the foil around and create a little sausage like that. So I'm going to show you a couple more sections on this side, and then we'll cut to the other side in just a second. So thinking about the density of the section, this section is a lot smaller than the first section. This is probably only 2.5 inches in depth on both sides of the section, but because of the nature of Claudia's hair, this section is as thick as the first section. So the density of the sections are really, really important in this particular instance, and it's definitely something that you should bear in mind. Now, I mentioned that we were going to hold the hair horizontally, and we were also going to hold the hair straight out from the head on a 90-degree angle. Now, the main reason for that, and I'm going to show you exactly why that is in just a second, and to be honest, when you're painting or saturating the ends, it doesn't need to be out here on this 45-degree angle. When we're creating our blended area, okay, I'm going to go a little higher here. So the minimum we're going to go up the hair is 50%, because remember, we're going to cut some of this hair off as well. So that's something that we need to think about. You'll have seen that from Wednesday's episode. We're going to go about 3/4 of the way up the head in our blended zone and then work our way down. Now, the point we're holding it at this angle is that when we then put the hair down back into natural fall, we have created a diagonal line that runs from the higher on the left hand side and down lower into the center back. Now this will just create added softness to the whole technique. So just by over directing the hair off to the side slightly, we are emphasizing extra softness through over direction. So hopefully that's a good tip for you all. Always make sure that you do the underneath side of the section as well. Really, really important to remember that you blend the back side of the section as much as you blend the top, and just make sure that your saturation is really nice and even. We'll talk a little bit more about saturation when we get round to the opposite side. Place the hair down onto the foil, pull the foil tight so it starts to buckle at the bottom there. You can just about see that, I think. And then bend it around the hair. Lovely. So we've just done 2 sections on the left hand side, and we're going to do 2 sections on the right hand side here, and this is going to be about creating the same amount of hair in each section. So it's good to remember how much hair you had in the previous section, and then as you work through your sections, also we're painting the same amount of colour up the hair. So remember, the first section was around 50% of the way up the section, and this is going to be exactly the same. So that's really, really important to remember, that we're going to create the same amount of kind of blend in that section as we did the previous section, and we're going to create the same amount of saturation. Now, saturation is really important, guys. We want to saturate the hair enough that we can pretty much can't see the hair that has got the lightener on it. Okay, so we want to kind of create that almost iced effect. You can just see that there on the screen at the moment. So really, really important thing to remember is to get that lovely, lovely saturation, and that will help it lift much faster, much more evenly, and much cleaner to get the result that Claudia is looking for. So place it onto the foil, wipe your hands, pick up your foil, pull your foil tight, and just fold it into a little envelope, sausage, whatever you want to call it. So the main reason that we're going to do 2 sections on the left and 2 sections on the right, and so on and so forth, is that for continuity of sections, it's easier to remember how far you went up each section if you just keep alternating sides, because you're only 2 sections previous, and we get a consistent lift in the areas that we're then working in. We're going to still follow the same principles of holding the hair out at 90 degrees relative to the head shape and over directing it to the side, so that when it sits back down we get that nice diagonal that we saw on the previous section. So we've just got to follow the exact same principles with this technique all of the way through. It's really, really ultra important that we follow these principles of this technique. Don't follow the principles like any technique or any time that we are creating something. If we don't do the same thing on both sides, then we've got to expect different results. And those different results may make or break the overall look that we're trying to create for our client. Okay, so we've finished those quadrants. So we've got 4 sections in each back section now, and we're left with 2 triangles of hair on the top of the head, as per usual. Anybody that kind of knows my techniques or watched many of my videos before, if it's highlights, then I tend to work through these sections. But in a ombre scenario, we're going to combine these 2 sections, and what you're looking for is, where does this hair live when the client styles their hair naturally? Now remember, when we took the pre-section, we took it from where the hair split naturally at the top of the head there. So when we put this section down, it's going to live exactly where I've just put it, and that is vitally important to the whole show. So we're not going to over direct left or right now. We're just going to hold the hair in the position of which it's going to sit naturally, and we can elevate, but because we're doing the hand blending thing, providing we've not just got it all the way down here, then it should be perfect. So we're going to come in and we're going to take this section and we're going to blend to about 2/3 of the way up the hair will be our blend zone. So if we just kind of sketch it in with the brush, and then we can use our hand to blend afterward. I like using a combination of the 2. Sometimes I just use my hand, you know, and go crazy and not blend in first or sketch in the shape. But because we're in a really kind of very, very obvious place on the head, this section is going to have to be absolutely knockout perfect. And we can't use over direction to make our lives easier. We really, really do need to make sure that this section is absolutely killer in terms of blend. So we're going to now come in, and where we've just used the brush to blend up, we're also going to come in and use just 1 finger to push the product up towards the scalp area, and that's just to diffuse and disperse the product up the head, just like so. And then we can just come in with our hands and our product on our hands, and remember, there's a lot of hair, so we need a lot of product to make sure that that hair is really, really well saturated. Now remember, we're going to cut some of this hair off as well, so we do need to remember that if we're going to, in the area of which we're going to fully saturate through here somewhere, we do need to make sure that we get enough product in there that when we cut some of this hair away, we've still got plenty of full saturation areas on the head. Now here's the thing, did you see what happened here? We've got a little tiny bit of lightener way out of shape. Pick up your comb, angle the teeth towards you, come in behind that section and pull it down and away. So you've created just a little bit of diffusion there, and then you can use your finger to disperse back up towards that area. So now we really want to focus on getting this product evenly spread throughout this section. This is our next thing. Once we've kind of got our blend going well, it's really, really important now to think about how we saturate the ends. Just like that. So once you've got that even and consistent look to your saturation, you can apply your foil, take the product, remove it from your hands so that you don't get it in places you didn't want it. Pick up the foil, pinch it tight and fold it over. Now we're only covering the areas on the hair with foil where we want the maximum light. This area doesn't need foil on it because we don't necessarily need it to lift as much to create that ombre type of effect. So we're on to the front quadrant now. Remember, this front quadrant's not very big, and we're also going to allow for that money piece at the front. So the next trick that you really want to do before you do anything else is make sure that we take out the hair that we're going to foil to create the money piece. So I've got a little triangular section of hair just there, and we're going to have that piece just, and what you want to work out is that enough hair for the fringe? I think probably just go a little bit more on this section, and then we're going to do the same on the opposite side. So if we go from the same point of which we took that previous section and we come across to the parietal ridge or the recession area on the opposite side of the head, so the two pieces of fringe finish in the same position on the head for balance and symmetry. We can always add in a little bit more should we need to, because this area here won't have any foils in it, but we do need to isolate this fringe area so that we know exactly what we're dealing with and is that enough hair, etc. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to be good, and for now we'll just clip that up, or clip that out of the way on the opposite side to the side that I'm working on, and then we'll come in on this side. Now we're going to use diagonal forward sections to mirror this section at the front here so that we can just seamlessly work into that section. Now remember, we've got to use a similar amount of hair in the section as we had in the back because we want some continuity. You could have more lightness in the front. You could take smaller sections and have more points of light, but we are creating kind of a hybrid of a balayage and an ombre. So what I'm going to do is take this section and over direct it backwards away from the head, balayage up, and then that's going to create a higher point here, and it's going to go diagonally forwards towards the face. So the high points will be away from the face, and that is that when we put the money piece in, we won't have tons of lightness all up in the front. We will have some darker contrast and saturation at the front. So I'm going to take this section, pull it straight back, and we're going to repeat exactly what we did on the front sections here. So we've got this just like so, blend product up towards the root area, saturate, and make sure we do the underneath of our section, and make sure that we're saturated all the way through the section too. So we're going to take a second section on this side, and again we're just going to be mirroring the section that we took for the fringe, over directing the hair straight back. And remember, we want this section to possibly go a bit higher, a bit further up the head, because we just want to create that kind of diffusion and continuity of taking the sections to all different places as we work up the head, because that will create a much more soft and diffused feel. We won't have all the points of light, the lightest parts highest up on the head, all finishing in the same place. So we've worked on our saturation there, on our blended area. Now we can work on our saturation of the ends, and then we can fully saturate as we work down. That's just a different way of working it. Some people prefer that, you know, making sure that they've got their blend right as the very first thing that they do, then saturate through their ends. I do a mixture, depends on how much detail I'm looking for. These are around the front, so it's going to be like highly detailed, and it does make a difference if we kind of put that little bit of extra effort into that blend. We are using over direction again, as we were on our previous sections, to enable more blend. So we're on the last section now on this left hand side, and I won't show you the right hand side as I do it because it will be exactly the same. The parting's pretty much in the center, even though it's just fractionally off. Nothing will change on the opposite side. So again, over direction, straight back, away from the head, and then come in. And we're going to do this one just a bit lower down, remember, because we're doing some high and some low, and it's so easy to forget that you're doing that. I mean, don't forget, I can't tell you the amount of times I've forgotten to do one high and one low and one high and one low, and I've done them all high, or mostly just end up doing them all high just because you just get carried away and you want more lightness, more power. It's really, really important to obviously try and concentrate and make sure that you're in the zone. And if it means that you have to say to your clients, you know, you mind if I concentrate, I really want to get this, you know, A-OK or bang on. Of course they're going to want, they've come for a service, they've come for a specific thing. If you need to concentrate, then you need to concentrate. And just as I'm doing this section, I can show you by creating that over direction. Can you see that automatic diagonal line that this has created here? And that is only emphasizing extra softness around that front area. If you want to do it in reverse and you want to stand in front of the client and pull the hair forward, you'll get a diagonal that runs in the opposite direction. I would probably do that if I wasn't going to be painting in a foiled money piece or face frame or whatever you want to call that technique. But using this over direction generally creates a much more diffused, easier to blend result. We have finished the left hand side now, so we did exactly the same thing. We've got the same amount of sections except one because of the parting, so we've got 3 on this side, 4 on that side. Nice and simple. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to work with a money piece or a face frame or whatever. So we've got that triangle section that we had from a previous, where we took that section away, and then we've got this slice of hair at the front. Now we've got a little tiny widow's peak, kind of very small at the front. So we're going to kind of ignore that because it's not big enough to kind of warrant doing anything with. This very first section wants to be a slice, okay? Slice the front one. The bigger and bolder you want this to be, the more slices you put in the front. If you want lots and lots of lightness in the front, then slice the first 2 or 3 or even 4 and then go into a weave potentially for a couple. But obviously the more slices you put in, the more you're going to create a really strong piece at the front. We're going to do a little something a bit different here. We're going to do a slice, a weave and a slice, and then we're going to paint all the ends of the hair that are outside of the foil. So our next section is about 2.5–3 millimeters back from the first section. Started painting this foil about 3 or 4 inches from the root area. I'm painting up towards the root area just like so, then I'm painting down towards the ends like that. And that is just going to help me to create a little bit more softness. This is not going to go right back to the root area, this one, but most of the way. Pick up the hair, elevate the foil, lay it down, and then saturate your ends. If your foil's not as long as your hair, it's a really good way of kind of making sure that you've got everything in the foil. Some people call this spaghetti ends. I don't really mind spaghetti ends. I know some people are like, no spaghetti ends. But providing the saturation is good and it's not creating pockets of hair that is not saturated, does not matter. And if it does not matter, then don't worry about it. One more section, and actually looking at how this hair is now, I'm definitely not going to slice this piece. So I'm going to tease these pieces now, back comb them up towards the face. Now obviously we'll get rid of this for cloudy in a minute, but we need to be able to see where we're at. So we've got a section here that's probably consists of the top of the foil here, this side, and a piece of hair underneath. We're going to hold it square through our fingers so the hair is fanned out. We don't want to pinch it together like this. Okay, fan it out and then just push back towards the root area up to the foil. So we're going to stop at the foil like that. Really, really important to remember. And we're still going to saturate the hair exactly as we did on all the previous sections. We want to saturate it really, really well. Even though it's in a foil, we want to make sure we get all those ends in and diffuse back up towards the root area just like that. Okay, we've got our back combing in there. That's going to help with our softness around the front here. And we're going to have to just leave it across Claudia's face for a moment because there is no choice. We're going to split this section into 2. So we've got this section now, it's in 2, so it was that triangle section that we had previously. I'm going to split it into 2, bring the section, fan the section out, push towards the root area. Now if you get caught on the way to the root area, then just go behind the back combing and keep pushing. You want to try and do it in one foul swoop. That's going to make that much easier to get out of Claudia's hair when we're done. Now we did the last one quite high up, so in the vein of consistency, we're going to do this one a little bit lower down so that we get those nice peaks and troughs, highs and lows in the technique. Paint side to side to saturate the hair well with a vertical brush stroke, just creating that nice bit of blend and diffusion. Fold it just before the blend, so the blend is still exposed, and then just tuck your edges in if you want to, just to cover it a little bit more. But remember, you don't need to fold it over the blended area because it might end up destroying the blend that you just did. Final section on top, little triangle section here. Pull the hair straight out, and remember, one stroke. If you get caught, like I'm feeling a lot of resistance there, okay, come back, go behind it, push down, and just feed it down gently. This is only a little bit of back combing. I would never want to back comb all of Claudia's hair. It's just way too thick for that. It would be here till next year getting it out. One more foil. Gone with an extra long one on this one. Make my life a little easier. Don't need to fold the ends over. We're going to paint up higher on this one. Get all the foil into the Get all the hair into the foil and then just blend up towards the face. I will lift this foil, the ends of this foil up, because if we look underneath this section, we will see, if I hold that back, it's not as evenly saturated underneath as it was on the other sections. And this is where people say don't do spaghetti ends, but if we didn't do spaghetti ends here, and this is where we twizzle and get everything all blended together, if we didn't do spaghetti ends, we wouldn't have enough product on the underneath side of our double-edged sword. We can just paint horizontally and get the product moving through the hair this way as well. That is definitely something that we can do as we work through, but it's also just about making sure that we've got that good saturation. Doesn't matter how we go about it, as long as we get it done. Fold by a third, fold by a third again. We can go over our blended area, but if we look what happened, as soon as that foil touched the blended area, it started to print it onto the back side of that foil. So that's just something to bear in mind, guys. Like I said, try not to go over your blend if you can avoid it. If you can't avoid it, you can't avoid it, but it will have some impact on it. So just think about that as you work. Right, we'll set that off to the side. We'll try and get these foils out of Claudia's face now, because I'm sure she's feeling hot and claustrophobic in there. So just spin them round. The hair can turn on itself. That's absolutely fine. And then we can chuck a clip in that front one. Claudia's free. If we come and have a look at the back of the foil, I was recording with those crosshairs on. Okay, so if we look in the back now, we have got a lovely, clean blonde. Claudia didn't want platinum hair, so this is going to be absolutely perfect. She wanted it slightly lighter than the picture, and that is exactly what we've got here. So all of these back sections that we did first off have all lifted to a beautiful clean blonde colour, so we can happily take these off now. Some of these sections that we did around the sides, they're not quite there yet, so we'll be leaving those ones in. It's really good to rinse as we go. There's no point in kind of leaving it on longer than we need to, because the front's not there yet. Right then, so this is the finished result to this beautiful ombre, balayage, whatever you want to call it, type of effect. More of an ombre in my opinion, because there's less dimension through the ends, but we won't get into the technicalities of that because we'll be here all day. Look after yourself, guys, and I'll see you again in the next one.